Hey everybody. So something's been weighing on my heart with some recent events, and I was not really sure what to do. But while I was on my walk today for my fitness stuff, I felt like I was called to speak out against it because when it comes down to it, I can do one of three things. I can either speak out against it, I can run away from it, or I can just do nothing at all, which is somewhere in the middle. And yeah, I'm religious, so I can say that I was called by God, but like it doesn't have to be a religion base. Uh, it can just be like, oh, someone saw injustice and they felt like they should speak out about it. So this video is related to George Floyd, but it's actually related to all types of violence that occurs throughout history and definitely throughout whatever future things will happen as well. I'm actually here to speak out about the cycle of violence and not necessarily all the events that have happened. So, the cycle of violence is basically the cycle, and yeah, big surprise, right? It's a cycle where if you've ever taken a science class, you kind of know how this works. Is that for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. That's like a lot. That's a lot of physics. So for every action, there is a equal and opposite reaction, and while certainly this applies to silence, it also applies to mankind as well, and emotions and feelings, and it especially applies to the cycle of violence. So what ended up happening, we all know. I don't need to go over it. But then also the writing is also something I don't agree with because I don't agree with any form of violence. I personally, in my own life, have tried to do a loving, caring, and understanding route. And yes, I'm human. I'll fall short of it from time to time, but I do my best to go that approach as well. And it's not just because I'm a Christian; it's because I'm actually a kind-hearted individual at heart, which took me a long time to realize that, by the way, given stuff I've been through in life. But I guess I actually am kind of kind. I don't really have it in me to intentionally inflict harm upon another person, shall we say. So, how I want to talk about this is through the cycle of violence. So, much like physics, when the cycle of violence occurs, an individual is going to react in some way. And if you think you're immune to the cycle of violence, trust me, no one's immune. The cycle of violence encompasses literally everyone. Everyone at some point in their life is going to witness a violent act. It just varies depending on how violent it really is. Like, there's obviously different degrees of violence, and there's different types of violence. Just obviously, everyone's going to experience the cycle of violence at some point in their life. And at that point is really up to the individual on how they want to react. Now, of course, I am speaking about this when I cannot really relate to everything that has gone on in the last couple hundred years. I just can't. I acknowledge that. I recognize that. But I can speak about the cycle of violence because I've seen it. I've been a part of it. And also I have done my best to try and understand it as best as I can in order to not pass the cycle of violence along to someone else. So, how it works is a violent act, and it could actually be a reaction from someone else receiving a violent act. In fact, most often it is that someone who has acted violently has been a part of the cycle of violence. Now, this isn't true to everyone. Obviously, some people just act violently. I don't know the reasoning for it, but they do. They act violently, and so they start the cycle of violence. Well, so now the person that has had the cycle of violence started upon them has options. They can either fight against the cycle of violence, they can run from the cycle of violence, or they can do nothing about the cycle of violence. And you'll find quite often that doing nothing about the cycle of violence ends up passing the cycle of violence along to someone else. When actually it took a little bit of therapy for me to learn this, but we always think of when there's conflict, we have one of two options, which is to fight or flight. We always talk about that fight or flight kind of survival instinct that is inherent to absolutely any creature that exists on the planet Earth. And the thing they don't tell you when they talk about it is there's also a freeze reaction where you fight, you flight, or you freeze. So you either stand up against something, you run away from something, or you do absolutely nothing about something, essentially. And fight or flight, either one can be fine, depending on the situation. Because it's certainly fine to say that, like, I don't have enough perspective to really say anything about this, so I want to step away from it until I can get the perspective, or at least figure out my own thoughts about the matter. So it is never wrong to take a step back. It is absolutely, completely wrong to do nothing. And even if you do nothing, it's just a natural reaction. Don't be too hard on yourself about it, but recognize that you are doing nothing and find out what you need to do in that situation. Do you actually need to fight, or do you need to flight for a moment or two? So the thing is unfortunately, the fighting that is going on is by violent means, which is going to just spread the cycle of violence. When the cycle of violence occurs, if a violent act occurs because of the cycle of violence continues to be spreading to everyone. So say, like, I don't know, say a squirrel for whatever reason bit your toe. Yeah, I mean, I'd be pretty pissed if a squirrel bit my toe too. However, the way I see it is that I can either be pissed about the squirrel biting my toe and, like, pass it along to someone else, or I can be pissed about the squirrel biting my toe, and then I can advocate against squirrels who are biting toes. It's a lame example, and it definitely doesn't live up to what's going on right now, but it is a basic example that I feel like everyone can relate to. Is like, something happens to you, you have an opportunity to get angry about it and do something to someone else, or you have an opportunity to get angry about it and do something to help the situation for other people, and ideally yourself as well. So I guess right here, what I'm trying to preach is that we're all caught in a cycle of violence, especially with the recent events that have happened. As humans, we should not just stand idly by, but we also should not promote the cycle of violence by also doing violent acts. And I hope that this reaches the ears that need to hear it. And I'm not talking about the people who have already done violent acts. I mean, sure, I would love it to reach them as well so they can kind of understand. But I'm talking about the people who were like me and not really sure what they should be doing. I hope it reaches people that need to hear that we really just need to act with more love and care and understanding when violence occurs. In fact, actually, when violence occurs, we need to up our love and care and understanding. Like, I get it. It's easy to love and care and be understanding when everything's going right. However, when things are not going right, it's even more important that we do that so that people see some light through the darkness and not just see continuing darkness occurring. So my challenge for everyone here is that think about something that you can do. And it doesn't have to be just because of the current events. It's just think about something that you can do the next time that you see the cycle of violence. What can you do? Can you reach out to the person that potentially the cycle of violence occurred to? Can you reach out to someone saying, hey, this happened to me and I really need someone to talk about it so I can process it and not spread the cycle of violence to anyone else? That's my challenge. I hope that this does not fall on deaf ears. Like I said, I felt called to talk about it. And honestly, like, I do hope that justice is served. I really do, because, the thing about violence is what the officer did just promoted more violent acts. And unfortunately, it's quite likely that those violent acts are going to promote even more violent acts. And we're just going to continue the cycle. Us as humans need to stop the cycle right here, right now. We have an opportunity to do so, and we have an opportunity to reach out to our fellow man and hold them by the hand, put a little love on them, and try and be there for them and understand, and then also fight for justice for everyone. So keep that in mind. I know this is probably going to be a video that angers some people, and I know other people are going to agree with it. I know a lot of people are going to have strong opinions about it. That's just due to the divisiveness of our nation at the current time. And don't you think that the people in power want us to be, like, divided? Because the thing is when we stand together as mankind, there is absolutely nothing that we can't do. So just realize that. So, again, I hope that this reaches the people who need to hear it. And I also hope that if you think of someone who needs to hear about the cycle of violence and stopping the cycle of violence, that you share this video with them, actually. And I know that's like a little greedy of a YouTuber to say, but honestly, it is a message that everyone needs to hear, and everyone needs to take it upon themselves to understand the cycle of violence and understand what they can do about it. So that's basically it. That's it for me today. I really hadn't planned on making this video, but as I said, I felt called to do something, and I felt like this was the best thing I could do given the current situation. So, yeah, everyone be safe, take care of yourselves, and, you know, I know it's weird to hear this from a stranger on the internet, but know that because you're a human, I love and care about you, all right? So, just realize that. If no one else loves and cares about you, I do. So, just realize that. So, just realize that, and, yeah, I mean, just be safe, take care, guys, be safe out there.